I mentioned in the last lesson that we may not always have the right information to be able to use the law of sines. If you don't have an angle and a side that you know, the law of sines is not going to work. So if that's the case, we can use the law of cosines instead. In my opinion, the law of sines is easier to remember and it's easier to work with. So I always try and use law of sines first. And if I can't, then I go to law of cosines. So this is law of cosines. You'll notice it starts out, it should look very familiar, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. That's the Pythagorean theorem. And then it's got this part added on, minus 2ab cosine c. This is not something that you need to memorize. You'll have this formula to use on tests and stuff. You just need to be able to use it. Now, how we use this. There is only one angle in this formula, and it is angle C. Okay, and it actually doesn't matter which angle it is. It could be A or B, but there's only one angle, and the side opposite of it goes all the way over here at the other side of the equation. Okay, so that's how you're going to remember the only angle you have is all the way opposite of its opposing side. And then A and B, it does not matter which one's which when you are plugging them into the equation. Okay, so I'll show you how to use this. All right, so we want to use the law of cosines to solve this triangle. So we are going to need to find out what angle C is and angle A and side B. Okay. So as you can see, we cannot use the law of sines because we know an angle, but we don't know its side. We don't know an angle, but we have the side, and we don't know the angle, but we have the side. So the law of sines is not going to work. So we have to use law of cosines. The only angle we know is this. So cosine 101, that's going to go at that end of our law of cosines. And then the side opposite of it is going to go all the way over here. Okay. These other two are the other two sides. So b squared is all the way over here, and then the other two sides, those are going to be the 29 squared plus 24 squared. I did not leave enough room. Move that over. Minus 2 times 29 times 24 times cosine 101. Okay, that's how we set it up. Okay, so whatever angle you know goes here with the cosine, and then the side opposite of it goes all the way over here. Now, the fantastic thing about this problem is, do you see everything on the right-hand side of the equation? Those are all numbers, okay? Stick that sucker in your calculator. Exactly how it appears. The only thing that you're going to need to do different is they're going to have parentheses there. But everything else should be totally fine. So we're going to do 29 squared plus 24 squared minus 2 times 29 times 24 times cosine of 101. Okay, and our calculator tells us 1682.6 and some other stuff. And then you're going to take the square root of that. And we find out that B is 41. Okay, now that we know that B is 41, we have enough information to use law of sines. So when you're doing a problem that says use law of cosines, you only have to use law of cosines once. And then you'll have enough information to be able to switch to law of sines, which is easier, okay? Because notice now you have a pair, an angle and a side pair that you know. So you can say sine of 101 over 41 equals, and doesn't matter which one we do next, maybe do angle C and 24. Okay, so like I said, once you've done law of cosines once, switch over to law of sines. We're going to cross multiply, so we get 24 sine of 101 equals 41 sine of C. We're going to divide both sides by 41. So we get the sine of C equals, put that in my calculator. Don't forget to close the parentheses on this or else you're going to get a wrong answer. 0.5746, and then you're going to do inverse sine of both sides, which I did not do in my calculator. Hang on. And I get 35. That's an angle, so 35 degrees. And then for angle A, I can just take 180 minus 101 minus 35. So angle A is 44 degrees. Okay. So that is law of cosines. Let's do another one right now. Okay. Same thing is happening here. We do not have an angle and a side pair that we know. So law of sines is out of the question. We do need to find angle B, angle A, and it looks like side C. Okay, those are our answers. I'm trying to keep these separate. Okay, so we already said law of sines is not an option, so this has to be law of cosines. This is the only angle we know, so that's going to go all the way over here, cosine 41. Completely opposite of it, we stick the side across from it, so c squared is here. So that means these 29 and 13, doesn't matter how we plug them in. We're going to do 29 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 29 times 13 times cosine 41. Okay, there's our law of cosines. Everything on the right-hand side is a number, so just stick that whole thing in the calculator exactly how it appears. 29 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 29 times 13 times cosine of 41. And we get 440.9-ish. Just leave that in your calculator and take the square root of it. And I'm going to round that to 21. Okay, now that we know that C is 21, we now have a pair, and so we can use law of sines because now we know these two things. So we can say that, I'll put this over here, the sine of 41 over 21 equals, doesn't matter which one we find next, maybe we want to find A next, the sine of A over 29. Law of sines, we're going to make a proportion and cross multiply, so we get 29 sine of 41 equals 21 sine of A. Divide both sides by 21. Make sure you close those parentheses. So we get sine of A is, in the calculator, 29 sine of 41, close parentheses, divided by 21. 0.905986, and so on. You're going to do inverse sine of both sides. Inverse sine of that decimal is about 65 degrees. That's angle A. And then to find angle B, we can just subtract from 180. So 180 minus 41 minus 65, which makes angle B 74 degrees.